And good morning. You're listening to The Root of It right here on KOYC 1260 AM. We are recorded here on Friday at the OMGA. What are we at? Ray, where are we? Hi, Ray.
We're at Linfield College. Actually, we're stashed in the basement of the TJ.
Maybe that's why I've forgotten where we are.
Yeah,
it's
they
so
may have
dark.
forgotten where we're at, but we won't let them for long.
Right. But we're at Mini College here.
Mini College. This is like summer camp for gardeners.
That's
this
right.
is beyond that. It's a fabulous opportunity for people all over the state to get together and compare ideas in gardening and learn from the experts, learn from professors from Oregon State University and other people who are not only experts, but they're authors.
And we are actually going to attend some classes ourselves, and then we're going to talk about them later on in the show. But some of the, I'm just a walk-in too. I came in and I registered because I am a delayer and I always put things off. But seats still available, and so if you're interested, just come down to Linfield College, and we've got the conference area. We're in the TJ Day Hall.
Yep.
Again, here in McMinnville. So some of the classes available on Saturday. There's rootstock. There is edible flower. There's succulents. There's a classroom in there just filled with succulents.
There's hot weather crops. What to go ahead and plant now that will tolerate the hot weather and ripen up for you yet before Christmas time. Or capable of being stored in the garden, such as winter squash, root vegetables that will winter over just fine. Now's the time to start planting for your spring garlic and leeks and various leaf crops that you want to be eating for Thanksgiving dinner. You can plant them now.
Yeah, so let's get into the weather real quick, since we always do. We're predicting to have some cloudiness this weekend, and some rain possibly coming up through the week, and then. But lovely 80s. We're looking at.
There's a potential drizzler too Sunday afternoon and evening, and maybe on Tuesday. Just a potential of a drizzle. It's not going to be a soaker. It's not going to be something that you can suddenly stop watering your garden. This is just going to be less than half an inch at best, and that's only if you're under the right cloud.
Right, right. I'm not going to get my field soaking like I need it to.
It's
I'm not going to get that kind of relief.
It will cool down a little bit, though, and the winds will change so that the firefighters will get have a chance to at least get a little bit of a break and get some success with some of these forest fires that are going on. But it's...
Well, what I've noticed, and tell me if at night it's getting chilly. And when I say chilly, I actually say freezing, but it's not technically freezing because that would be 32 degrees. But if I have to put on my thickest hoodie, for me that might as well be freezing
Really?
out there. Yeah, and that's where I am at, let's say 5 o'clock in the morning. When I get up, it is really cold. I have to close the windows in the house now, and so last night in the area it got down to 55. But it's been getting down to the lower 50s on the 5th of August. It actually got down to 49 degrees.
See, for me,
you haven't been experiencing that?
That's prime sleeping weather. I'm out like a freaking light. Okay. I could, you give me 45 degrees and a warm blankie, I'm good all winter.
Yeah, yeah. So with that cloudiness, and then we're going to be warming up. I'm looking at the long term. We're still we're looking at least in the 80s, 90s.
Yeah, this is really just one of those little air conditioning breaks that we get periodically through the summer. There's a low pressure front up off the Queen Charlotte Islands that's going to bring in this little bit of coolness for a couple of days, just to give people a break. Yeah. It has been pretty ugly, so
yeah,
enjoy it.
Enjoy it. So that's the weather. When we come back, why don't we see if we can't grab some speakers, see if we can't talk to some people about what's going on here at Mini College. So for right now, we'll be right back. You're listening to The Root of It right here on KOYC 1260 AM.
And we're back. This is Ray with To the Root of It, and this morning we have Sharon Dietrichson in for a little while. We're down here at Mini College. What do you think of it so far?
So far, I think that there's a lot of very, very busy people who have put one heck of a lot of work and time and effort and thought and dedication into making this whole event possible.
It always amazes me how people exercise their talents in one coordinated effort, and there's stuff going on in every room down here. Most of there's 10 or so classrooms down here, and they're all filled every session with just fabulous classes. There's Ask an Expert, there's Seed to Supper, there's going to be apple tree grafting. Just really, really cool stuff.
One fun for shade with hardy succulents.
Yeah.
So that shady spot on the north side of your house where you can't get other things to grow.
Yeah.
How to eat more flowers.
That one I'm a little curious about. I'm not sure I'm ready for a gladiola supper.
Oh, come on.
Now if it was packed, I have had the squash blossoms.
Oh, yes.
Packed with like meatloaf.
Mm-hmm.
And that, besides being really kind of cute, it's like a stuffed pepper.
Well, it's kind of healthy, too, because instead of having it wrapped up in a tortilla or a piece of bread or something another, you're eliminating a lot of those carbs by eating a little healthier that way. So.
Yep, and you do get a high concentration of the natural vitamins that are available.
Yep.
A lot of vitamin C in some of these flowers.
Mm-hmm. There really is. I was kind of really curious about beating the bugs to the produce.
Oh.
Have you ever run that race? I know I have.
I have had an occasion to where I tried growing Brussels sprouts one time.
Oh my goodness!
And that was an interesting experiment. I got beautiful big Brussels sprouts, and when I thought I was ready to go do them, nobody had introduced me to things like aphid.
I was going to
spray.
say the aphids were just conglomerated all over them.
It's they had gone from being a vegetable to being a protein source if I was going to eat the aphids. So I did just wash them off, and I got a few Brussels sprouts, but yeah, it was scary at first to look at them. And
I went through that exercise a couple of times, and I gave up on Brussels sprouts. I thought, no, I'll buy those. I lost the battle to the aphids, I'm afraid, but. And the hot weather crops. I mean, we have had some terribly hot weather in the area here, cooling off a little now, but it looks like it's going to be going back up again. And so this time of year, what would we be looking at putting in some of our things that we're going to have for fall?
Well, I think that would probably be a good thing to do right now, although they may require some, if they're starts, you can go ahead and build little shades over them. And it's really simple. You just, get like a cedar shingle or something of that nature and prop it up and protect the plant from the absolute direct sunlight from 10 o'clock in the morning until 2 or 3 in the afternoon. But the soil is so warm that if you keep them watered, the root systems are going to just really enjoy it.
Oh, yeah.
You just have to protect it from the actual burning rays of the plants.
That would be a lot easier than moving my little containers into the shade like I've been doing if I just propped up something and gave them some partial shade to protect them.
Yeah, just, a piece of lightweight plywood scrap.
Yeah.
A piece of 1/4-inch plywood would be, anything like that to just build a little shade house for it for a bit. It would still get morning sun and it would still get afternoon sun, but the direct burning rays is you got to protect them from that.
Well, it's kind of like putting on sunscreen for ourselves.
Well,
it doesn't take a lot, but it gets rid of those burning rays, like you said. I could probably even take a couple of pieces of my bamboo and hang a cloth over the top of it and make a little shade that way for some of them too.
Well, I was walking the Lollipopster, my little dog. We were walking around,
yeah.
and there's one of my neighbors has actually run a wire across his deck, and he has a shade cloth with eyelets on it hanging on this wire. And during the heat of the day, he has these gorgeous ferns out there and hostas in great big pots. And it's a beautiful deck stuff. But for the heat of the day, he just pulls the curtain in front of him. And then at the end, in the evening, he just pushes the curtain back out of the way over by the side of the house. You don't see it.
Yeah.
And so it's literally a shade curtain.
Yeah. Pete and I did that on what would be the west end of our deck, because our deck faces south-southwest.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets, it was 116 on my deck one day about a week ago. So I have these curtains also, and I use like those curtain rod things that they used to use for bathroom shower curtains. Okay.
Yep.
Works great, slides across that thing, couple of metal clippies to hold them closed, and Pete goes out and waters them down once in a while, so that cools that deck off. But that's one of the spots I have put my plants.
Well, that's one of the things you can do to protect your plants.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to put in fall garden plants, you do need to protect them from the direct sunlight until they get well rooted and well established.
You bet.
Probably until, I'd say, as a guess, the middle of September, until the sun gets down on the horizon just a little bit, and then you can remove it and let them have the full sun from the middle of September till the 1st of November, and then just let them winter in.
Right. There you go. Well, one of the classes I think is something that might be of a lot of interest to some of the folks here right now, because a lot of our people live in farm countries, rural areas, and so on like that. And that's the one that they're offering here on fire retardant plants. Fire is such a big issue, especially this year with our dry weather and everything like that. And it would be interesting to poke at that class and find out exactly what's going on there.
Well, it's a little late to get fire retardants plants started to actually be of benefit this year.
Oh, no. Yeah,
but I mean, for this year, you still go ahead and mow down out, mow your fire break and cut your underbrush and clean up all the kindling wood off the bottom.
And that's one of the things I have heard, that with the fire folks, all the firefighters out there, that if they had 3 houses in a row, or farms, or whatever, and 2 of them have taken the time to mow and clear a clear area around their buildings and so on, and one hasn't, and has a great deal of brush and dry things where it shouldn't be, they're going to go to the ones they know they can save, that have a better chance of saving. So the guy that doesn't do it is putting himself in harm's way.
Yeah, they really they can't take the time, because by the time the fire gets to,
it's too late.
A cluttered yard, it's going to explode. It's as opposed to trying to sneak up on the house. And but there are plants that will slow down, that don't burn that easily, and that's going to be a cool class too.
It is.
Yeah.
I think so. The one I'm preserving would be one, because a lot of us are harvesting our gardens right now and so on. And so if somebody's thinking of taking the excess tomatoes and squash and whatever else that they happen to be growing in, that would be one that would be very prudent for this time of year.
Well, I've got the freezer just about full of stuff, so we're ready when we take off this fall to go on our next excursion. We're going to have frozen things to throw into the refrigerator in the trailer, and we'll be just fine with fresh blueberries and fresh blackberries and things for breakfast, and a couple of packages of tomato sauce and my frozen tomatillo mixture, because we will have to have some soup somewhere along the way. And then I tried something new this year, new for me. People have been doing it for thousands of years, of course, but new for me was I dried a bunch of herbs. And basil, tarragon, and got those in little Ziploc bags, so we can just throw those in the corner.
So did you get one of those nice little round dehydrators that you lay the stuff on the layers and do it, or did you do it in the oven?
I did it in the oven.
Okay. They both work.
Yeah, it worked just fine, and then you just take and scoop them all off. The wonderful use of a cookie tray.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And it smells wonderful in the house when you're doing it,
man,
too. It's enough to just make you put on pounds just thinking about it. But that's something that I have been experimenting with lately, too. And I found that those fresh herbs we do are a lot better than what I get at the store. Well, it looks like we're going to a break.
Okay, we'll take another little break now, and we'll be back in a little bit. You're listening to The Root of It on 1260 AM KLYC Radio. We'll be back very shortly. And we're back. This is Ray with To the Root of It, and we have Sharon this morning and Kyle, and we're down here at the mini college. They've got us in the basement of the TJ Day building. I've never been in this building before, so I was lost even finding it. And this morning we have Alan Wenner with us, and Alan's one of those people that you see just about everywhere, kind of in the background of no matter what's going on. Now, what are your main focuses this year?
The community garden. As you well know, I spend most of my days over there, some part of them.
Yeah, it's absolutely fabulous. If any of you are curious about where this community garden is, it's over at the corner of West Side Road and Burnett Street, and it's in with the Co-op's food pantry garden. There's how many individual beds do we have?
We have 20 individual beds and 20 individual gardeners right at this time, and we are making plans to improve it next spring after our irrigation ditches settle.
The
You built the majority of those boxes for the
I
garden
built a
this year,
lot of
didn't
raised
you?
beds
And I
last
love the
fall and
children's
spring.
boxes that are in there.
Yeah.
It's small enough where the kids can participate and have a little space of their own too.
The children's boxes are a great addition to the garden, and we rent those for $2 per season, so that almost anybody can afford to rent a children's box. And then at the end of the year, if they clean that box up, they get their $2 back.
How awesome is that?
So we want to focus on gardening education for the children.
Absolutely. Catch them early and catch them for life.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely. And there's a wide variety of things in the children's garden. There's spices, there's strawberries, there's beans, corn.
Are the children picking their own items that they want to put in their gardens?
Yes,
With the help of parents, of
they
course.
have 2 leaders that are gardeners, and they work with the children to let them know when the food is ready to pick. The gardens that Ray was talking about are common gardens open to the gardeners,
Right.
but we use them also as demonstration gardens for the children, because we grow a lot of different stuff in these gardens that really can't be grown in the children's gardens.
Of course.
The children are delighted in the springtime to do something. There's Janet Brown over here. She's one of the children's garden supervisors.
And then the work mode sets in, and it fades a little.
Yes, in the hot, when it's 100 degrees, you don't see any
Yes,
children
exactly.
around. They're in the pool.
I thought it was fun when I stopped by out there one day, and I saw a couple of the children were actually painting the outside edges of their boxes so that they were personally theirs. Kind of
Yes,
thing.
we have different colors of paint so they can paint their boxes so they know exactly which one is
That's
it.
so fun.
And then they get their favorite color on their box.
Very cool. And the meanwhile, I would hope their parents got one of the larger spaces for the family garden.
Well, we would like to get the parents involved, because if the parents are involved, the children will be more apt to show up.
Absolutely.
But this doesn't always work, of course. Our regular boxes for full row gardeners, 4 feet by 24 feet, is $25 per season. Now, I think we're going to add winter gardening starting this fall, because we have all these great facilities and we're only using them for 5 months of the year, and there's no reason we can't use them all winter for growing winter veggies.
Now, the fees for those boxes, if I'm not mistaken, that also includes the fact that they're ready to go when they get there, and also they get watered, or do they come in and water their own gardens?
No, next spring we will have automatic drip watering for every garden at no cost to anybody, and those hoses will all be laid out in the spring.
I think you
this
might
is-
have people lined up with
Yeah,
those.
this is a project cost about $12,000, and that's money that we raised during this past spring and in our plant sale and various other activities.
Alan is getting an award tonight at the dinner, and it's called the Oregon State Behind the Scenes Master Gardener of the Year Award. This is for people who you don't really see, but you see a lot of results from them.
Mm-hmm.
And Alan is certainly one who has gotten lots of results. A lot of it from his living room.
That's right.
So it's fabulous, and we really appreciate you, and you are to be congratulated.
Yeah.
Well, Ray, as you well know, this is a team effort.
Mm-hmm.
You being one of my team. And we've been working together very closely since you became a master gardener. I was Ray's mentor when he was a master gardener.
Since
trainee.
2003.
So that's been
It's
several years. And the other members are Polly Blum and Pam Dolling and
Mm-hmm.
Marcia Sherry and my wife, Glenda, of course, and Kathy Burdett.
Mm-hmm.
And they've always been available to help me when I needed help on one of my crazy projects. That always worked because of the team.
Well, you get enough input, and by golly, you start smoothing out the edges of any kind of rough ideas, and it slips right along. I've thoroughly enjoyed working with Alan over the years, and even when we were out digging up bare root trees in February in a downpouring rainstorm, slogging through the mud behind a barn, it was fun. As long as we had coffee and cookies, we were good.
And there you go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's the staple, isn't it?
Absolutely. So anyway, we want to thank you for joining us this morning, and have fun the rest of the mini college.
Well, thank you for this opportunity, and it looks like we'll have a great mini college.
This
yeah,
is
absolutely.
absolutely cool. Yeah.
I'm teaching this afternoon.
Uh-huh. He's
I'm
at the
teaching
helm.
growing hot weather crops
Right.
today and tomorrow.
Well, the community garden is absolutely super special with all the efforts that have gone into it. I know it's been a lot of work. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All righty. Thank you kindly, sir, for joining us, and we'll see you later.
Okay.
We're going to take a little break right now, and we'll be back very shortly. We want to thank Northwest Greenlands for sponsoring us, because without them, a lot of the dirt would not be in the community garden. That's one of the reasons it is as successful as it is a mixture of dirts that Northwest Greenlands donated to the community garden. A lot of beds, they filled them up.
Takes a whole lot of people to make a successful army to get the job done.
Absolutely. So anyway, we'll be right back. And we're back. This is Ray with To the Root of It. And this morning we have a guest speaker today who just finished giving the keynote speaker for the keynote speech, Mr. James Cassidy from Oregon State University.
Yep, I'm an instructor of soil science there.
That is got to be. I've listened to the lecture a couple of times,
Right.
and I now have a very healthy respect for all of the little things that are under the roots.
It's amazing. I mean, most people probably don't realize that in a single pinch of soil there are over 1 billion living organisms. And
Wow.
I mean, obviously they're really small. Mostly we're talking about bacteria and fungi, but really that is the basis of farming and gardening are these living creatures that process energy and nutrients and allow us to turn them into food.
I've gotten much better about over-rototilling.
Yes, well, it's a tough habit to break because it's fun.
Well, it is. It's
I mean,
thrilling
it is.
to get on the back
Oh,
of
the
it
power.
and just
I
churn
mean,
things
it's
up
like
and
it's
throw dirt everywhere.
Millennia of frustration as humans to suddenly have 8 horsepower at your disposal. I mean, it's fun to watch disorder become order.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
But too much rototilling is too much order.
Mhm.
Because what you want actually in soil is to have diversity of habitat, which means disorder. You want clumps, medium-sized clumps, small clumps, ground-up stuff, organic matter in big chunks and coatings, and the more diverse the physical habitat is, the more diverse the organisms in that single pinch, and therefore the more diverse the processing of the nutrients, that carb, energy, and stuff can be. So it's more efficient.
So
and there's
another reason I like creating the soil that we're putting crops.
that's a whole thing, yes. And I mean, you don't want to grow the same thing in the same place over and over and over, because what you do is you're building a habitat for pests and weeds and diseases.
Yeah.
So if you grow tomatoes and they do great, and then you till them in, well, right at the end of the season, something got your tomatoes, probably some sort of blight or whatever. Now you just rototilled that into the soil. Over winters, you put in your new tomatoes, and they get it a little earlier. And then pretty soon, and you got to spray them all the time. Pretty soon you're eating more spray than you're eating tomatoes, where you should just move them around. Even in a small garden, you should move them around.
I spent some time as a child on a farm back in southern Illinois and whatnot, so I got acquainted with some of the aspects of the farming life and so on like that. But that was one of the things I remember my parents talking about, as the need to rotate the crops and put this in this field this year and that in field next year or something. And I didn't realize that much about what you're building the environment, like you said.
Exactly.
Keeping over farming it.
Well, and also different crops have different rooting patterns, extract different nutrient profiles. So if you're always growing one thing, you're always pulling out the same nutrients, and pretty soon you've got this weird sort of imbalance.
Sure.
And then there are some crops, and it makes sense, there's a certain order that you put crops into for like light feeders and heavy feeders. Light feeders, you want to go back and forth. But like legumes, for instance, peas and beans, they have a relationship with a soil microorganism called rhizobium that actually infects their roots and allows the bug actually takes nitrogen out of the atmosphere and makes it in an available form and gives it to the plant, which is why beans are green and have complete proteins, because proteins are made of amino acids, which are nitrogen-based compounds. And so they can that's called fixing nitrogen. So if you grow peas and beans and then you cut them down, you've just added fertilizer, nitrogen fertilizer to your soil by growing a certain kind of plant.
I think that was one of the things that came up one time, because they had one field where they had been putting in quite a bit of corn and so on for a couple of years, and then they switched to did soybeans, and the word was that later when you rotated their leftover soybean plants into the ground, you were refeeding.
Yep, you can then get a soil test and say, wow, we actually saved $500 an acre in fertilizer because we did that. So it really comes down to economics too, on a large scale. And I mean, a 2-crop rotation, it's not a great rotation, but that's what we have in the Midwest: soybeans and corn, soybeans and corn. But we have a 7-crop rotation at the Organic Growers Club. That's a student farm at OSU.
Is there a preferable cover crop for winter?
Well, there are winter cover crops and summer cover crops.
That the backyard gardener can use.
Yeah, I mean, and also, just aside, you want to kind of rotate your cover crops too. You don't always grow the same one every winter, because then you're starting to cause those same kinds of problems.
Oh, true.
Right. So you got to think about that too. But they're like field peas. Sometimes they're called fava beans. Not necessarily the big Windsor giant fava beans, but they're actually a fava bean that's for cover crops. You can buy them. Other legumes can overwinter. And if you grow them with like annual ryegrass or something like that, the ryegrass grows taller because it's with the bean that's getting a little bit of nitrogen. And the bean gets bigger because it can grow up on the structure of the grass. And so together they actually do better than if you do them separately. And an interesting little experiment to do, maybe at your home garden scale, is to have a bunch of legumes in one part and grass in the other, and maybe have an area where they overlap. So you got 3 treatments, and maybe you can rotate that treatment
how fun.
Year to year. Or only grow grass one year and only grow beans one year. But another thing that's good about that too is sometimes it's so cold that the legumes kind of die out. The grass makes it. At least you got something in there.
Right.
But under ideal conditions. And there's all sorts of interesting cover crops you can buy. Like I know Peaceful Valley Seed. They have all sorts of interesting ideas on it. You can read them and go crazy reading about that too.
Last winter I tried. Kyla and I had discussed Darwinian gardening.
Yeah.
And
what gardening is.
let the strong survive. So I decided to just go ahead and mow everything in my flower garden, all the perennials and
grasses came back.
Let the annuals go to seed, and then just cover the whole thing up with a whole bunch of compost. And I went away and left it. And when I came back 4 months later, lo and behold, things that I didn't expect to survive were coming up through there just fine.
Well, like what?
The dahlias were coming up.
Yeah, they're
I
big
left the
tuber.
tubers in the
Right.
ground. Just said, if you make it, you make it.
Yeah,
The zinnias reseeded themselves.
pretty hardy seeds.
Pretty
obviously.
hardy seed. The calendula was completely overrun. I really
Amazing.
probably won't leave that many calendula in the ground next
Right.
year.
I love that idea though.
Yeah.
And you should do that once in a while too.
Yeah.
Whatever you do it. Kind of switch it up all the time.
Yeah.
I think it's a
So-
good idea.
Yeah, and I went ahead and just plowed 2 acres. So I went ahead and I tilled them, and it looks great. And you were just saying that you were you want some big clumpy stuff. You want some of these things, and I'm going to be planting grapes in there. And I've never seen this field look so lovely. It was so fluffy. Everything was just
Well-
granular, and that just might not be the best thing, right? And
well, what looks good to us, there's a reason for that, and I'm not exactly sure why that is, but we like the order of it.
Okay.
And that isn't necessarily good for plants. It's fun for us, because
Right.
it's fun to make it look that way, and we think, oh, that looks good. But really, it's lowering the diversity of the habitat. And so you're changing the way that it holds and releases water and the way it processes gases from the atmosphere. And you're there's winners and losers in the biota. And you want a lot of them. And so if you have these certain ones that are winning and a bunch of them that are losing, you're losing function ultimately.
Okay, so it's a choice between happy food,
Right?
happy tummies,
and
or eye candy.
Exactly. And I think you just step back 10% from it. This
Mhm.
probably would make a big difference, Instead of going over it the third time,
Mm-hmm.
just... Of course you did. Exactly. I know
it's really smooth.
I know
now.
exactly what you did. Because I've done it.
Yeah.
Because it's fun and it looks great. And you think, oh, I can plunge my hand in it up to my elbow. That was going to be great for the roots. But really what happens is,
Water.
as soon as it rains, that all
It
compacts,
compacts out.
and you've lost all the macropore structure, large
Mhm.
pores. And so now it doesn't drain. Right? And it
Right.
holds the water like a sponge.
Oops.
And it
Root
stays
rot.
cold. I mean, and the germination is all about temperature.
Right.
And think how much energy from the sun it takes to change the temperature of the water, because the heat capacity of water is very high. And it takes a long time for that to get warm enough to germinate a seed. So you're putting in the seed, and they just keep rotting.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
So what you want is a soil that drains well and holds water. And that's a minimally processed. So you got big holes still, so water goes down fast. I mean, the ultimate measure of soil management is how fast does the water go in.
So that's
Because that
what-
captures everything in a way. If you can take a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket, and dump it, and it just goes in,
Right.
you know it's going deep, which is where you want it, because then the roots will go for that.
Mhm.
And you're not running off. And the first thing that's lost in runoff is organic matter and clay. And those are the two things that have the ability to store the nutrients. So erosion is what you're trying to avoid. Now with grapes, you want a little stress, obviously. So it's going to be fine.
Well, Mr. Cassidy,
Yeah.
we thank you very much
Oh,
for
awesome.
stopping by. You'll have happy journey.
Thank you. And I really appreciate that you guys are doing gardening on the radio. And everybody should be gardening. A little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah,
Even if they have containers on
Absolutely.
on their
You live
patio,
on
their
the
deck,
West
you know.
57th Street,
Right.
New York City. You should have a little pot with some basil growing in it in a
Uh-huh.
window, and just participate. Just remind yourself
It's like
what
candy.
it's
It
really
makes you
about.
happy and it's really good for you.
And you'll realize when you're eating, say, "Oh, it's just like a little basil plant." Thank you so much.
You bet.
Thank-
And we'll be back in a little bit. You're listening to The Root of It on 1260 AM KLYC. And we're back. This is Ray with To the Root of It, and Sharon, who's one of our hosts, and Kyle will be here shortly. We just got back from a session at the OMGA Mini College. What'd you think of it?
I thought it was very informative and very interesting. There's a lot of information that's being disseminated out to the people to help them to help other people more effectively. And like in the Ask an Expert class that we sat in briefly, it very much told the master gardeners how they sort the questions out to the people that they're going to be assigned to. When people call in and say, I have a bug problem or I have a weed problem or something, and also how do you get directly to people who have the right information and how to use the system.
Well, the selection of the experts is really a unique process. They actually are people who are experts in various fields, and when you volunteer to be part of the answering committee, if you will, you can say, I feel comfortable with a certain information or a certain topic, and I would be happy to answer a question on, say, grasses or tree grafting or whatever your expertise really is, so that the people that get your question, and that's an interesting process. When you enter the internet and the asking of the question, it goes to a central person who then can route it to the person who is actually the expert in the format. So when your question gets to somebody to answer it, it's somebody who's got the answer for you.
It is.
And it's really cool.
It is. Yeah, and one of the things like they were saying is sometimes, of course, like an example they used is somebody that called in and said, I have little bees under my house. That was all the information they had.
Yeah.
But they say, hey, I'd be happy to answer your question, but I'm going to need a little bit more information before I can give you an educated answer, and taking it from that standpoint. So knowing how to address the person asking you a question when they don't know what information you need is a pretty fine point.
Yep, but it's the system works really great. And Kyle went to a grafting class. What did you think of that?
Yeah, that's right. I was at the grafting class because it was mainly for, let's say, apple trees, pear trees, those kinds of orchards. The reason I like it is because you can also do the same thing with grapevines, and so obviously that's my big thing. But it was very informative. What I did learn, though, is right now is the perfect time for grafting. So if you want to do a bud grafting, which is where you just cut around the bud that you want, and then you place that on the tree that you want, this is the time to be doing that. The time to be doing collecting scion wood, which is where you just have a long stick that you plan on putting on another rootstock. You do that in February. In January, you go ahead and you collect that, wrap it in some moist paper towels, and then at about May, you go ahead and you start sticking those on. But it was good to know that this is the time if you're interested in grafting that apple tree. So let's say that you have a really old tree. The example that was given is that there's a 100-year-old tree, and that 100-year-old tree isn't producing. It doesn't look good. It's rotted all of these places, but it has perfectly great buds that you can just take off of there and put onto another tree that you want. So again, this is the time to be doing that. If you want more information, you just go to extension.oregonstate.edu/emhill. Type in grafting right there, and you will get a whole bunch of information on that. And also the Ask an Expert website, that's extension.oregonstate.edu/ask. It's ask, not ask. So yeah, you go there.
A-S-K.
Right, exactly. You go there, and that's how you get your questions asked. But here on the radio show and on the podcast, you go ahead and you go to ray@totherootofit.com, Sharon @totherootofit.com, Kyle @totherootofit.com, and that's how you can ask us, who are experts, because we attend these classes.
Right, and we are perfectly capable of doing the research and coming up with a well-researched scientific answer for you. We don't deal in mama made it up so it had to work answers.
None of that. And
I've been broke of that habit.
Yeah. One of the things that I always tell people, because you should know this, you're a master gardener. I don't know everything, but I know where to go and get the answers. So you ask us a question, and if we don't know the answer, we're not going to fake it. We're going to go back and go to the source where we can get the right answers.
Yeah, one of the toughest thing about becoming a master gardener is you can't fake it. You can't say, I think that, or you can't draw your own conclusions. There is no inductive reasoning. It's all, actually read a paper, or I talked to the person, I talked to the expert, and they said this. That's why it was, I couldn't break away. I was supposed to go to that Ask an Expert, just jump in there for a little while. But the scion and the grafting was just, I couldn't jump out of there. I couldn't do that, not for anything.
Oh, that would be very interesting.
So what do we have coming up? Because we just, as we've mentioned, this is a pre-recorded show on Friday. So we've just gotten back from lunch, which was a box lunch provided, and delicious. But we've got classes that are going to be coming up here soon. What do you have?
I'm going to take a little break. I'm actually going to just take a break and get ready for the tour this afternoon. There's tours that go from 2:30 till 4:30 this afternoon, both today and during session 3, and I'm thinking maybe I need to go do one of those. They go out to Bailey Nurseries, take a tour of the warehouse production facilities, greenhouses, the whole operation. And then there's also a tour of Red Ridge Farms, which is a guided walkthrough at the Oregon Olive Mill, state-of-the-art olive pressing facility that we have right here in Yamhill Valley. People for years said you can't grow olives, and lo and behold, now there are olive genuses that
It's
are
incredible. Wherever you can grow grapes, you can grow olives.
Where grapes can grow, you can grow olives. It's absolutely true. Anyway, it's olive oil tasting, and then there's olive oils, there's specialty vinegars, gourmet salts, tea, books, houseplants, and other distinctive gifts. But anyway, it's just a fabulous place out there at Red Ridge Farms.
So you're going to go touring?
I'm going to go grab a tour this afternoon. I'm going to go home and see if I can get companionship.
Have you been up to Red Ridge before?
Not for a couple of years.
Oh.
I have been up there. I know where it's at.
It is.
But
a
I
big
haven't
place.
been up there since the olive press was actually put into operation.
Oh, it's been a while since you were there.
Yeah,
then.
the last time I was up there, they were just planting the trees and weren't even really sure that it would happen. And since then, it's obvious that the trees grow just fine. And it's become a really interesting production.
It has, and one of the questions that I asked one of the folks up there when I was there a while back was, okay, do you have enough olive trees and enough production here to keep all of your machines busy? And he said, no, they're down, quite frequently. And I said, so do you take in produce from small growers in the area and process them for them? And he says, we've just started doing that. He says, but yeah. And he says, they bring anything from a bushel basket to a truckload. And so it's kind of cool that they not only do their own things, they cooperate because they have that expensive machinery with the public in the county. Cool.
Yep, absolutely
But
fabulous.
it's fun. Enjoy the tour.
Yeah, we'll go see what's going on.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be wandering on upstairs because of silent auction. They're getting that all ready, and we're going to be real involved with that tomorrow afternoon, too.
So you're going to be putting in some bids for these silent auctions or
probably.
something?
I just went up because I'm going to be cashiering for them and
I
helping
see.
the people who win the bids to get checked out and everything, but they've got some fantastic things up there.
Because we're not just attendees, we're also volunteers here, right?
Yeah.
So let's take a little break. This is Ray with To the Root of It on KLYC Radio, and we're going to be right back. We're here at Mini College at Linfield College.
And that's going to wrap it up for us for this edition of To the Root of It right here on KLYC 1260 AM. We'll be back next week with a brand new show, new things to learn, but right now we've got some more classes to get into. If you missed any of this show or you want to catch the reruns of past shows, just go to youtube.com, search To the Root of It and KLYC, and there we are. Thanks for tuning in. We will be back next week, and as my friend Ray always says, keep your tools sharp.